We don't comprise any nationality. Jews are not a nationality or an ethnicity or a race. We have many nationalities, ethnicities, and races amongst the Jews. We only have a common religion. Jews have no common land, language, or culture. Our country, our land, we here are members of citizens of the United States of America. The Holy Land is a holy land, not a national homeland, because despite what it says in Israel's Declaration of Independence, the Holy Land is not where this nation was born. This nation was born on Mount Sinai in the desert, where there was no lands, there was no territories. No land makes up a nation. Our homeland, the Moledes, as the Bible calls it, is our religion, the Torah itself. Our only mission as Jews is to be a kingdom of priests and holy people. But the Zionists hated that. They hated the Jewish religion because it emphasizes peace over war, character development over conquest. The Zionists looked at Jews as weak and ugly. Even some religious Jews were ashamed of their Jewishness. They considered Jewishness a terrible burden and Judaism a disgusting religion that needs to be changed. And they said, if only we could stop being so much like us here, so much like the ghetto Jews, so much like religious Jews, and be more like our persecutors, like the anti-Semites. The anti-Semites wouldn't hate us anymore. So they worked to change Judaism and all the Jewish values. They changed our Holy Land into a national homeland. Instead of Eretz Yisrael, they made it Medinas Yisrael. We don't have, instead of Lashon HaKodesh, instead of a holy language, they have Ivrit, a national language. And they wanted a culture like every other nation. Who needs holiness if you have hummus? What makes us into a people, said the Zionists, not our religion, but our land, our language, and their culture. And their goal was to convince the Jews and the non-Jews all over the world that the Jews are not people like us. We're not the authentic Jews. The authentic Jews are the strong men, the bronzed warriors. They wanted to convince people, Jews and non-Jews alike, they wanted to change our identity from religion to a nationality. So what they did was they concocted a new version of Jewishness, a fake, inauthentic version. They changed Jewish history, they changed Jewish values, and they created, out of nationalism, mixed in with a little German romanticism, vitalism, Nietzschean philosophy, and ideas from foreign religions, an ideology called Zionism. And they tried to convince the Jews to accept it as authentic Jewishness. But there was a problem. What normal Jew with a brain in his head would accept Zionism? Nobody would send their children to Zionist schools. How are they going to get us to become Zionists? So they had an idea. They created an army. The Ben-Gurion made his name rot with the other evil people, said that the army is not merely a place where they learn how to shoot, and this is important. This makes Israel's army different than all other armies in the world. The American army, the Mexican army, the French army is designed to protect the country. But Israel's army, said Ben-Gurion, was designed as an educational institution, an indoctrination camp of Zionism, to take Yankel the Hungarian and Itcher the Yeki, and the Yemenite and the Moroccan, and make them all into Israelis and Zionists. Israel's army is a church of Zionism. And they try to force us into the army with their conscription, with their draft. It didn't work. We said we're not going, and especially the women. They wanted even to draft the women, and Ben-Gurion told that going the Chazon Ish, don't tell us you're going to resist. We're going to send our police force with guns and our army with AK-47s, and we'll force your women into the army. And the Chazon Ish said, you think you're the strong Jews? Oh no, you're the weaklings, because when you come with your police and your army, we're going to say, we'd rather die. Shoot us, but we're not going to your army. And Ben-Gurion gave up. Today they thought of a new plan. Today they want to draft our women with new strategy. They know that forcing them into the army won't work, so now they try with legal loopholes. They try with conniving trickery. They try to interrogate women to make sure that they can't access their religious exemption. They try to prove they're not really religious. They try to prevent them from accessing their legal rights. Just a few days ago, 3 women were arrested in Israel, handcuffed and arrested. What was their crime? Did they rob somebody? No. Their crime was they were handing out pamphlets to citizens of Israel that explained to them their legal rights. Here in America, you're obligated to tell your customers their legal rights, but in Israel, if you tell people their legal rights, you're arrested and treated like a criminal. They're innocent girls. Every day they're dragging girls, innocent girls, religious girls, into jail, into military prison with the false claims that they're not religious or that they're guilty of various different so-called pseudo-crimes. All of this effort, all of this trickery, all these lies, in order to force Orthodox Jews and Orthodox women into the Zionist indoctrination camps, to bring them in, holy Jewish sisters, and spit them out like Zionists. In order to turn all of this, in order to turn a society of scholars into a society of warriors, in order to erase our identity and replace it with a fake Jewish identity, with the strong bronze imitation of the anti-Semite who they call a Zionist. Never mind our religious grievances with the state of Israel. No Jew is allowed to be in Israel's army. No Jew is allowed to fight any wars nowadays while we're in exile. That's true across the board, but set that aside for the moment. For women, it's much worse. Every rational human being, whether religious or not, should stand with us against the oppression and persecution and false accusations that the state of Israel is perpetrating against our people, against our holy brothers, and especially our holy sisters, many of innocent ones who are now rotting in Zionist prisons. Israel claims to be a democracy, but what democracy looks at the proliferation of a religious group within its citizens as an existential threat because of their religious beliefs? What country uses its army, indeed created its army, as an indoctrination camp for its civic religion, to induce its recruits to accept the official state religion over the way they choose to worship? And what country ever in the history of the world forcefully inducted women into their army, specifically in order to change their personalities and religious beliefs? What democratic country in the world today has clandestine government meetings, and some not even so clandestine, to devise strategy to obliterate traditional Judaism from its citizens and replace it with Zionism? What country, what democracy, what country anywhere claims to be the nation state of people that are not its citizens? Israel claims to be our state, the state of all the Jews. What country in the world has the audacity to claim that citizens of the United States of America, of Europe, who were never living in that country, never plan on living in that country, parents never lived in that country, but they are my state? This is the most disgusting, audacious thing that any country in the world does. We Jews are blamed for what Israel does, just like citizens are blamed for what their government does, and because Israel claims unilaterally to be our country, we are blamed for what the state of Israel does. What kind of democracy refuses to allow its citizens to read about their legal rights and arrests as criminals those who try to teach citizens those rights? And it's because of this one goal that we are here today, the one goal that the Zionists have, to force us into their indoctrination camp, into their church of Zionism, to transform us into them. We'd rather die as Jews, let them know. We would rather die as Jews than live as Zionists. This is their one goal. They want to ensure that all Jews and non-Jews recognize their state as the Jewish state, that the world recognizes Judaism and Israel as its representative. And I'll prove to you that this is what's happening. These girls that were arrested for handing out pamphlets describing the rights of other women in the country, they were arrested. Tell me, which news media, which news outlets covered the story? Well, in Israel, the secular outlets did, and in America, plenty of Jewish outlets did. But in Israel, there was a media blackout of all the religious newspapers who are involved with negotiations, taking money from the Israeli government. Their own rabbis, the rabbis of these journalists, these fake news journalists, these fake news media, said that in Israel, don't even try to accomplish anything by screaming and protesting, because in Israel, they're scared of the government. They're bribed and they're bullied, and some are brainwashed. They can accomplish nothing. Only outside of Israel, only in Chutz La'aretz, in America and in Europe, their own rabbis said, should we scream loud and clear like we're doing today, because the people in Israel are stuck. The people in Israel, over here in America, we have freedom of speech. In Israel, you saw the videos of what happens to when people protest like we're doing now. They run horses through the crowd. They beat when they come with their twisted faces and clenched fists. And they beat people with batons and with fists, and they kick them. Not long ago, just recently, the other day, they beat up an elderly rabbi so bad that his artificial leg detached from his body. And nobody cares. This media blackout that they have is clearly the result of the fear and intimidation that Israel has over their citizens. We will not allow our brothers in Israel to suffer, no matter why they think they're silent. Their rabbis knew better, and they said they're silent because of the fear. And so we're here today to proclaim, number one, Judaism is not Zionism. Judaism is a holy religion. Zionism is a political nationalist movement. 2, Israel is not the Jewish state, and it's certainly not the state of the Jews. It's only the state of the Israelis. 3, Israel does not represent the Jews and does not speak in their name. Number 4, we Jews are not responsible for the actions or ideology of the state of Israel. We say to our Jewish sisters and brothers who are sitting in jail in Israel, who are cowering at home, who are in hiding, who are in need of legal assistance, who are in physical and spiritual danger, who refuse to be inducted into an army that has no moral right to draft anyone. The army of a state that has no moral right to call itself Jewish. We tell them, we have your back. We'll help you financially, politically, legally, and in any way we can to ensure your freedom of religion and to end the farce that the Zionist state is trying to commit, trying to bully and intimidate our holy sisters into becoming Zionists, strong men, Zionists in their army. And to Israel we say, we promise you not to disappoint. We promise never to stop being your biggest demographic threat. We promise to be the biggest supporters of the safety and security and the rights of all our Jewish brothers and sisters in Israel. And at the same time, we promise to be the worst nightmare to the ideology of Zionism. Because Zionism is an existential threat to our people and our religion. And we promise you, just as the Jews refused to go like sheep to the slaughter when coerced into abandoning Judaism throughout their generations, we too will not go like sheep to the slaughter, but will rise like lions against the Zionist attempt to destroy our religion as well. And as Ben-Gurion saw when he tried to forcibly draft our sisters, the Jews who survived Roman persecutions, Russian pogroms and inquisitions, will survive the Zionists as well. We will survive your forced indoctrination and any other plans and attempts you have to destroy our religion and erase our community. Neither your sting nor your honey will ever bring us to our knees.
Zij helfen die alles werden aangespaard, met lawyer, met legale hilfe en andere hilfe. Die Zweck allein von den 3 Meilen, was wird arrestiert, hat zugekostet über $12.000, das liegt auf hohen Hieben. Wir reden noch Geld, das ist verstanden sein, Junge, Thomas, Chris, und Bibi Schwier. Jetzt sind wir da oben, den Covid ausriefen, und kuschen wir Minke zu da für Monsi.
Beschiss, der Musik hat gedicht abgeschnitten, beschiss ist so 8. Bruder, a Golden war zu dicken, bis Asa im Ruchalem, Jechat, Schifta, Yisroel.